Now I would like to welcome Professor Tamir Chazan from the Technion and Sunbit. He will talk about functional entropy and the information in deep neural networks. Yeah.
So it's hardly working. Good. Great to see everybody here and seeing me in such a size. Backstage, I actually thought on how bad it can be seeing so many people looking at me, and must admit it's much worse than I imagined. So thank you all for coming. I'm very excited being part of this amazing group of researchers presenting AI. And I'm very happy to see many people here thinking of AI, want to work in AI, working in AI, contributing in AI. And I do think that the synergy of academia and industry combined together is like something that is growing uniquely in Israel, but also in the Silicon Valley, I must admit. And I think this is a source of power, and we do want to invest in this constantly. The most exciting thing that I want to make sure is that I know how to do that. Wow, thank you. Perfect. Good. So today I want to discuss about functional entropy. It's a mathematical concept that I worked on in the last few years, and I think it's a very exciting concept because it allows us to look deeper into deep networks and understand better what's going on. So what we are thinking, what we are seeing is, you can see here a standard deep net. In this case, it's a VGG, but we are working with every deep net. It's a visual deep net because it's easier to explain stuff on images, but basically we can also look at transformers and everything, and I'll show everything together. Just starting to understand, we have input as an image, and we have a label, and we have, at the end, a probability over the possible labels. And a question that I'm asking myself for a while now is how can we measure the probability at the end? Meaning, how can we measure the confidence of prediction, the uncertainty in prediction? How can we understand the information that flows through the network? And I think it was realized pretty early when deep nets were out. The probability at the end, the softmax that we're having choosing which class we predict is really non-informative. Here you can see an example of predicting over inception V3, over ImageNet, looking at a car, a race car, trying to understand what we are seeing. The probability of a race car on the left side is actually 5%, 5.7. It's a high probability because we have like 1,000 classes, so basically it is a very distinctive car. And we can also attack learners. And here what you're seeing on the left image is a car being attacked by the FGSM, the fast gradient sign method. And here the prediction turns to be mosquito net. And you can see that the probabilities are actually comparable, meaning that the output probabilities doesn't really convey what's going on. And the second component that we are looking at when we are thinking of information, confidence, or uncertainty, we are looking at Shannon Shannon entropy. Basically, the Shannon entropy, this is the mathematical formula. Oh, I have this one. White over green. The Shannon entropy is written here. It's a basic formula over probability, over the softmax that we are seeing at the end. And it usually conveys the amount of information we have in the prediction or the bits that it actually tries to predict. And you can see in this example that the Shannon entropy is really uninformative. And the main question is why? And it's uninformative because the softmax at the end is just one module, one class in the DeepNet. It doesn't convey the full information, the full structure, the inductive bias in the function that we are learning. And what we want to do is actually try to understand what's going on in the decision itself when we are making predictions. So, starting to put some notation inside, the probability of label given image is actually the probability of y given x. When we are thinking of the conditional Shannon entropy, this is the equation. And in this talk, we'll discuss the functional entropy. I'll just try to explain all the symbols here because it's actually quite a complicated mathematical concept. We have a function fx, which I still didn't define, and we are trying to understand something that looks similar to Shannon entropy, which is f log f instead of p log p. So f should be a non-negative function, and we need to somehow balance this information by this integral. And the integral should be, with respect to some space, it's the space of x. So I'll try to explain what are these quantities. Basically, the function that we get is the prediction of a specific label. The label y is fixed. For example, here the predicted label can be car, can be mosquito net. We can look at how the function behaves with for a specific label, and we are thinking of the behavior of the function as what happens with respect to the input, which is x. And x needs to have a probability space around it, and what we are doing is we are sampling this x around the image of the input. So we take the image, we randomly perturb that by some Gaussian with whatever correlation we need, and we try to understand the concept of functional entropy. And surprisingly, in this way we have this talk, it actually makes sense. When we are looking at the function, we actually look at the whole information that flows from input to output, and we can actually see difference in what's going on when we have a prediction. Here what we are seeing is the functional entropy given the predicted label, and you can see a shift in information. The attack on the race car that turned it to be a mosquito net actually shifted the information. It's like somehow less informative because the attack, if those of you know how to attack images, it's actually spread out with gradients around the image. So it really reduces the amount of information that flows within the network. So the talk now, in the 7 minutes that I have, I'll try to explain what is exciting about functional entropy and try to actually demonstrate how to implement that for those that are curious on implementing this thing. So basically, the functional entropy, and these all the components of it, really measures the information that flows through the function. And the nice thing about functional entropy, it's not specific to visual content. It can be to any function. So every architecture has its own information flow, and actually show how it also goes with transformers. And the concept of functional entropy I just introduced before, the Shannon entropy and functional entropy. The basic concept, both for Shannon entropy and functional entropy, is the fact that they are both decomposed. We can decompose both of them by parts of information. So we have the notion of marginal entropy and conditional entropy. And this is the main theorem of this talk. The Shannon entropy knows to be decomposable by the Bayes rule. The functional entropy is decomposed, implicitly appears in a previous work and now in the upcoming NeurIPS. Yeah. So this is an academic talk. I'm a professor. I'm also at Sunbit, but I'm a professor. I really like equations. And this I'm trying to explain the decomposition that I actually presented. So this is the composition of the Shannon entropy. You can actually see how it decomposed to marginal entropy over Px, the probability of a single site, and the conditional probability here, which still does not work here, for those that can see the green sign here. So we actually have this decomposition with channel entropy. It turns out that if we define marginal function, which is fx1, which actually sum out the x2 variables, we can have the same decomposition. We can have both marginal function and conditional functions being inspected by fixing part of it. Okay, say fixing the x1 pixels to measure the information in the x2 pixels in an image. And basically, well, it's a beautiful proof that I'm very proud of my student now, a PhD at Meta. Very elegant proof to actually show how we are able to shift and condition information when we are going from high-dimensional probability space of x1 and x2 and try to decompose it to the function, the marginal function fx1 and the conditional function fx2 given x1. I will not go over the details because we don't have much time, but for those of you that want to look at these things, we have an upcoming submission to NeurIPS about that. So what we can do with the concept of conditional functional entropy? As described, we can actually define a function on a label, whatever label we want, and we can measure how much information we have in pixel x2, conditioning over the whole image x1 except for x2. And you can actually see that if you condition on the zebra, the information that flows for the prediction zebra on the pixels of zebra are really highlighted. And when you do that for the label of horse, apologies. You can do that with the label of horse. You can actually see the horse being the most informative for this label. The same with the giraffe and the lion. You can actually see that the information that flows from pixel to prediction, when you actually try to understand the functional entropy, it gives you a lot of information. This is like the part of explainability that everybody talks. Another example that I'm actually very proud of, this is Sunbit. This is what we are doing at Sunbit. We are doing point-of-sale financing, and we are deploying deep learning models to point-of-sale financing. And basically what we need to do, we actually need to, because the fintech world is highly regulated, we actually need to understand what our models are doing, and they are being inspected by the regulator in audits to make sure that they are not wild. So what we are doing, just to understand what's going on, we are looking at the information that flows in our decisioning from input, which is the upper leftmost image. This is how our input looks like. And I'll describe the input a bit, like why I think of it as an image, and how the information is being flowed in each of the layers, or each subsection of layers. And you can actually see that it takes the input image of understanding a specific person and the financial activity of a person and start processing the information till we get like where we want to look at the financial image, you know, to make a decision. And basically what you're seeing here, you're seeing the financial activity of a person in the last, say, 5 years. The upper leftmost cube is the last year. The middle is the last 2 years. And the rest are the subsequent years. And you can see that in this case, a delinquent customer actually being viewed on the financial activity in the last 2 years. You can see most of it in the last year and some of it in the last 2 years. So this actually makes sense, and you can actually track the decision itself, and the auditor can see that the model is fair to some extent and doing what it's supposed to do. As I said, it's not only images. It's also transformers, it's also text, it's actually any type of function. And you can see how the information flows in each of the units. The LSTM, we know that the LSTM has a context, so you can see the information being built toward the words. You can see that the BiLSTM, the information flows from the start and end towards the middle. In CNN, you can see the windows, that it works with few windows, 2 windows, and the rest is really ignored, as we are used to see CNNs. And transformers has full flexibility to actually highlight or look at the information of whatever it wants to look at. So the functional entropy is really a very general concept that can work with any function. And last thing, it's beyond explainability. It actually can be part of learning algorithms. Here, what we did is we worked in multimodal attention. Now with GPT-4o, everybody talks about multimodal. We wanted to force that the information that flows from each modality will be more or less the same. This clearly improves performance because once you force the model to look both on visual information and lingual information, actually gets like the best of all worlds. This also works. And basically, I think it again reinforces the notion of functional entropy and the importance of controlling the information that flows through the DeepNet function. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamir. Any questions to the speaker?
You should get a speaker because I hardly.
Hi. Can I use the model on generated code segments? Because code is different from picture and stuff like that because it has the different language and the semantic, and each code language has some interpreters, some with compiler. So can we take this model and put it on that kind of stuff?
It's an excellent question. I don't have a lot of experience on code generation because you really need like huge models in order to work on that. But I think the most important thing is the tokenization. Like if you have a tokenization, you can actually walk over tokenization and see how much information flows in each token in a way. So basically, we should get these things. Like I would be very happy to explore this direction. But everything that flows as a function just need to, you need to understand what is the prior probability of the sensitivity that you actually measure the tokens. I don't have it anymore. The probability that you actually perturb the initial information, like how you define the probability space that you generate the sensitivity analysis. For tokens, it's not like entirely clear. We need to think a bit about that, but I think it should have some information in it.
Any other questions?
יש לזה קשר ל-Bayesian neural networks?
Yeah, so actually I gave a talk here in the computer science department. We actually employ functional entropy in impact Bayesian theorems. It controls the complexity of the Bayesian learning. It actually decomposes the information in Bayesian learning by the prior that you have. So yes, a very strong, a very tight relation. I thought it was like too much math in order to put in this talk. But we have a paper on that in last NeurIPS, I think.
Any other questions?
Yeah, a question. Would this, sorry, closer? Okay. So, would this, would functional entropy be monadic, as in, could you layer these categories? So, for example, you use giraffe, you use zebra, but could you do mammal, or could you do tail? So on and so forth. And then could you layer that query, basically?
Yeah, so you're thinking of hierarchy and labels and everything. It's a good question. I actually don't know. If it will not work, there should be a very interesting reason why. Because eventually what you need is like information flowing through a function. So it should be represented by a function, but the setting here actually do not explore that explicitly. It's an excellent question, a research question that should be explored. Agreed.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, let's thank Tamir again.